National Chess Master All Rats here to continue my video blog on the team match, online team match between Army of Brotherhood and my free video lessons group. The score is now 13.5, 5.5 in favor of the Army. Still about 400 games left. Let's scroll down. It's kind of interesting if you just kind of peek at some of these games. You'll see a lot of them, they are taking their time, which is good, and so this match is going to go for several months. The people that are finishing games, we're in our 5th day, and we're just now starting to see some forfeit. There's a forfeit down here in a little bit. Let me get to the first one I know that I didn't do a video of yet. Here it is. Okay. We did one between these guys. We did this one, but we didn't do this one here. This was kind of surprising. Let me bring it up. I also shrunk the size of the video. I don't need the left and right margins. Don't know why I didn't think of that earlier. Yeah. Okay, so let's bring up an analysis board and go back to the beginning. And here we go. Okay, we're in a Ruy Lopez. We've all seen this position plenty of times. And here white opts for one of the sidelines. The normal move is rook e1. And then the game continues in whatever tangent it's going to continue in. This is what they're playing, and it's kind of getting played out. What's been happening, at least on the higher level of chess, is that white is switching to 6d3. Now, this is not a move that's going to really give white an advantage, but the top or upper echelon players are putting some attention on it simply because black is equalizing with everything else, and they're trying to find some way to milk a tiny advantage into a victory. And it doesn't mean they're going to win, but this is the move that's been in theory for a while. Been popular for a while. And naturally, the lower players will adopt what the grandmasters do and continue to play games that go 15, 25 moves deep in book. It's a lot of work. It's up to you. Now, I learned something from one of the comments. I always thought I had to reload it. I could just hit this little current button. Now, that doesn't take me to where I left off, but at least I don't have to reload the PGN. Anyway, what white chose was knight c3. Now, black shouldn't have any trouble against this either, but it's yet another line that white might try just to get black out of the main theory. It's going to avoid a lot of various preparations by black, including the Marshall counter gambit. Okay, so black pretty much plays it like a normal Ruy Lopez. And we'll see how that turns out here in a bit. Okay, now h3 is thematic in a normal Lopez. You're trying to get d4 in, and you don't want this bishop on g4 giving you a pin. Yet the game takes kind of a little different flavor here. As I said, black follows the normal Lopez plan, but I'm not sure if that's so good here. I mean, logically it makes sense. The reason white plays c3 is so that the bishop can come back to c2 and not give up the bishop pair. That's the whole idea behind it. But then with the pawn on c3, the white knight can't get to c3. So here this knight's on this square that he's not normally used to being on. But you see, the positional drawback drawback for black doing this is he's taking 2 tempos to rid white of that bishop. It doesn't really have a great deal of activity once it gets on c2. So it's one of these arguments that, well, it's important that I exchange my knights for your bishops, and I have a bishop against your knight. But really, they're essentially an even piece. I've pointed this out a number of times in a number of videos. Very, 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 very few games are decided by the bishop over the knight in the ending. It's just too rare. So they're roughly an even piece. Okay, so white kind of surprised me. He doesn't play d4, so then what was the purpose of h3? That just created a weakness. I think d4 would have been the move, and black rids white of the bishop, and then we go on, and black continues making moves that black would make in a Ruy Lopez, and why not? Okay, so now if I was black, what I would try to do is get a knight into h4. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's not all that difficult. Uh, First, you might have to stop and play g6. Now, you don't black doesn't mind trading off this other bishop. This bishop of black's isn't doing him much good. But if black can get a knight into f4, that's a really strong square for the knight. And because of the weakness that white has made with h3, white can't conveniently play g3 to kick it out. So let's look at a possible line. Okay, now I'm often asked how do you analyze a position, because people don't know, or for those that are playing online chess and treat it like an over-the-board game and sit here and think what they think's the best move and then play it. How do you proceed? Well, you start with candidate moves. When you play this move was made with the idea so the knight can get to h5. Okay, that was why it was played. So what can white do in the meantime? Well, we analyze. He's put his knight on h2. Is the idea to put that knight on g4? I don't know. Let's take a look at it. Or does white want to play maybe bishop h6 and hit that rook? I don't know. Let's take a look. So let's start with this and analyze it. Okay. Now we'll try this knight g4, and as I said, the whole purpose of this line was to get the knight to f4. Okay. Now, what can white do in the meantime? Well, suppose white doesn't want this knight coming into f4. Now, we don't know if these are good or bad moves. We're just testing them out. You analyze bad moves to find the good moves, and none of this is forced, but it's just a way to analyze. Now, this stops white from getting knight f4 in, right? And the fact this knight's on g4 does shield the weakness here. What can black do in the meantime to upset the apple cart? If anything, well, one thing he can do is he can try and trade this bishop off. Okay, that if white trades the bishop, then that develops the black queen. Okay, now let's just go ahead and do it. Okay. And we don't know and it's beyond the scope for me to cover everything. When you're analyzing a game, you will spend a long time trying to figure these things out. I'm just going through in a few minutes. I'm looking at some moves. This is kind of interesting. This ties the black knight down to f6 because of the threat of a fork. It also threatens a potential fork over here, right? Black can't play bishop takes. There's a tactical flaw in this. I'll show you. Oh wait, do I want to do it that way? I want to do it with the queen. There's a reason. Okay, now if black trades queens, here's the tactical flaw. The knight becomes under attack. It has to go back to g7, and then we get a fork. So here, white's kind of forcing black back a little bit. Okay, now maybe white will put his rook back on f1 and get ready to break f4 himself. So, I just designed this with a plan of black trying to get a knight into f4, and because I can read my own mind, I knew what I was planning. I sought to prevent it. Well, that's how you analyze. Well, here's the fun thing. Your opponent doesn't always see what you're planning. And if he doesn't, and you can see more, it gives you a good advantage, even if you're rated the same. Because you can raise your rating in online chess if you'll work. And to do that, you have to analyze. And if you don't see everything, you don't see everything. Your opponent you're going to learn from playing a better player who will play more precisely. Now let's just back up a little bit. And the jury's out. This is something for the players to analyze and teach you how to analyze. I went back by this g6 move. Now let's try knight here. Now this threatens to get rid of the knight. Okay. Now let's try this just for the fun of it. Okay. Now we're ready to go into f4. Now here we're going to let black have some fun. Let's just go ahead and take. We'll see how this illustrates. or plays out. Now we're going to get this move in because we can. Black probably wants to keep his bishop. He doesn't want to get it forked and thrown off. But let's see. Let's bring the rook back here. I'm trying to get f4 in. Now, if you play f4 now, this knight could take it. And I'm not sure if black has really gained much here. Yeah, we have. We're getting ready to kick this knight out. And let's see. So, for instance, queen f3 attacking the pawn, h5, drive the knight back. How about queen g5? So, I mean, just a sample idea. But if white doesn't take these steps to prevent the knight to f4, let's find something where that knight just gets into f4 unmolested. Okay. Let's say black plays queen f3 for the fun of it. Okay. Now knight h5. Now take. Now I'm going to leave this knight d5 out for the moment. Okay. I'm going to bring this rook over here. And now I'm putting this knight on f4, and I'm trying to illustrate the point I was making. White can't play g3 because the pawn falls with check. And this, again, I wanted to illustrate this to show one of the reasons why you don't want to move your rook pawn in front of your castle position. And when your opponent does, try to get a knight into this or the corresponding square if the colors are reversed. Okay, so let's get out of that. Like I said, I don't want to dwell too much on the things. I'm kind of teaching how to analyze, and you can do this every move. That's what's fun about chess. You can every single move you can analyze a position out like this. So he doesn't opt for to trying to get the knight to h5. He kicks the bishop, and white decides to trade it off. Now black's got the bishop pair for what it's worth, and I think it's okay. Black shouldn't mind if white takes this bishop off because it's kind of behind some pawns, but in the center. That here white's threatening to double pawn, so he brings it back. And now white's eyeballing this outpost on d5. So it's one nice thing about two knights against a bishop, or two knights against two bishops. If there's an outpost like this, they can occupy it and keep it permanently. So white does get a permanent outpost for a knight here. There's really nothing black can do about it. And so he takes one. Let's see. Could he... Whoops, hit the wrong one, darn it. Let's see. Let's get to the right position. What if black plays bishop here? The idea is to trade off both sets of knights. Well, you can take on e3, and if black takes with the rook or the queen, you can take the knight on d5. If he takes with the knight, you basically leave your bishop on e6 and say, when you put your knight back on d5, I'm going to take it. That's the whole objective. I'm wondering though, what if f5? Okay, what can white do to upset the apple cart here, if anything? Now, if pawn takes, bishop takes. Oh, we got a problem here. Or do we? Let's see. Takes. Yeah, we have a problem. If you go that way, anyways, there's a check diverting the queen. So we have to. No, we can't take it. We can't take with the queen. No, we can't play f5. And well, maybe we can't. Or no, we can't. I want to play f5, and then after pawn takes, take the knight, but white takes with check with the queen. So f5 is just not ready to go yet. Maybe prepare with king h8. You know, it's something to analyze. I'm not going to go into all the stuff. I just kind of want to show there's always an idea you can sit in here and try. Anyway, he takes this off, and then he no need to preserve that. Black is I guess he's defending the threat here, but why play defensive when you don't have to? Why not activate this rook? Well, you can't activate it that way. I mean, to the e8. Let's see. Put it up on a7. That stops the fork. See, white, you know, I don't know what's going through black's head, but if the logic is I want to keep my bishop against the knight, well, this is a good knight. That's a bad bishop. You want him to trade it off, and chances are white's not going to cooperate. He's going to keep that powerful knight on d5. Okay. So, you know, you don't want to break the line of communication with your rooks. So anyway, that's just something for the players to analyze. So bishop d8, and now comes the f5 I was talking about. And now white offers a queen, or black offers a queen trade. And here it's curious. Black resigns in a game he doesn't have to resign from. And I was playing with this a little bit. See, really, black doesn't have any really bad weaknesses. You know, you can say the d6 pawn is weak because it's backward, but you could say the a6 pawn is weak. But how does white assault the d6 pawn? Well, it's easy to see how he assaults the a6 pawn, but black has some resources here, defensive wise. Okay. First off, we're going to burn a move. I call burning a move to get it to white's move here. I'm going to just centralize the king, and I'm not doing anything with my pieces yet. If this doesn't work, then we can go and try and do something with the piece. That's how you analyze. But the idea is white's going to try to pile up on that pawn. But black is trying to lure him in to do it, because if this pawn is halted, I mean, if white's attack of that pawn's halted, how does he make progress? Okay, so now another interesting move is g6, just another waiting move. We're putting a pawn on the opposite color of our bishop. Now when this comes in, now we get a5 instead of taking on a total defensive posture with rook fa7. Now, how does white make progress here? Well, let's look at the most direct way, a5. Okay, well, if you push a4, you might run into b3, but you know, take this way if you want, and then he takes with the knight, and now we move the rook out of the way. See, now black doesn't mind if white takes this pawn. His bishop's on it. Now the knight's stuck, and c2 is hanging. So black has a little tactical trick to mess white up if white goes directly to try to win that pawn. So my point is, how does white make progress here? See, what I'm trying to say is black is not losing. Does white stop and play c3 first with the idea of b4? Well, let's burn another move for black. Let's just try this, h5, just to make it white's move. You know, we can always find a better move for black if we do it the other way. Now we take. Now we have the luxury of taking with the pawn. But now black can throw a4 in. Okay? Now we've shut the file off. So question is, can white start working on some new weaknesses? Like, for instance, b3 creates a pin, but maybe black doubles the rooks. Okay, and you know, on just to show on pawn takes. Hey, I'm gonna let's trade off. Let's just trade this down. Now black has, whoops, stop one move short. Now black has a dangerous pass pawn, and white has a pass pawn too, but white's going to have to stop and worry about black's first. Okay, so it's easy to see if b5, a3, if b6, a2, b7, we get check, and then we go win the pawn. So at some point, white has to come back. Let's do it now, just to have it done. Okay, and now let's start running the king over. Let's see. Now the white king, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's 5 moves from taking that pawn. So black, 1, 2, 3. Now white's covering the entry points. So let's stop and take this pawn. Maybe white could improve by taking a pawn first, but there's a point to all this. We're going to get d5 in. See, the white king has, or black king has no entry points into white's position. White's going to run over and try and capture that pawn on a3. Okay, and now we have to set up a. No, it's not going to work. Wait, we stop and do this. We get a tempo. Okay, so I'm going to change this slightly. I'm going to keep the king running to the. Whoops. I'm going to keep the king running to the queen side. Yeah, I guess my idea of d5 didn't work. But now we go and hit that pawn. White spends a tempo on it. Now black is able to throw this in. And now king c6. Okay, so now if white plays king b3, we stop and take, and I believe black is winning this, unless white has some trick over here to get a pass pawn. See, black's threat is to play a2, forcing white to take the pawn on b4 and then run his king over. So does white have a break that we need to worry about? Well, I'd have to do it on this turn. Let's see. I don't think g4 gets a break as it makes this guy backward. So f4 it is. And the idea is to play f5. So let's see. Takes. Let's do this and get it done. And get this off. Now this comes in. I don't think black gets back in time. Let's see, take. See, our pawn's in the way. Interesting. So, could that, and the whole thing is that king and pawn ending could have been improved on. I don't know. That's how this is how you analyze. And I'm not going to go any further. There's just a wealth of possibilities. Black didn't have to resign. And you don't expect to make the proper evaluation the first time through one of these. There's always improvements for both sides, but this is kind of gives you an idea of what you can come up with in a online chess game. You have time to sit and analyze. So I will be the first to say I probably didn't analyze that king and pawn ending out the correct way, but you can always improve on it. Anyway, let's close this one and go back to the main page and find another game to look at. So black didn't have to resign, but we don't know why he resigned. Maybe circumstances of life said I can't be here for a while and I'm going to lose on time. I'll just resign. Okay, so let's see, we covered that. Now let's come down a little bit more and see which other games I haven't done yet. I think I did these games. Let's see, they look familiar. Yeah, that's where the queen got trapped, and the other game was white had won the queen for 2 minor pieces, so I covered those. I'll get all of them. Here's, okay, Markov, I got both those games, I'm pretty sure. He won them both. And if for some reason, if you're watching these videos and you've completed your game and I skipped it, I apologize, just posting the team notes or the team thread here. Hey, you missed my game. Thank you. I'm going to do my best to get them all. That's the plan right now. Okay, here's one that was over, and this one ended in a mate, I think. Yep. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Wow, 28 move checkmate in less than 5 days. 5 moves a day, a little too quick. Okay, let's see how it plays out. Okay, King's Indian. Okay, e4, e3 is a little passive. It does avoid mainline theory, but look what it's doing. It's shutting in the dark squared bishop. Will that be a factor? We will see. But the game is pretty even. Now, one thing is if white later plays e4, he's going to lose a tempo in doing so. Black is just playing a normal setup here, and white's just playing kind of quietly. Now black occupies a square that white should have been occupying, but white gets some counterplay on the e4 square, but not necessarily. D5. Now, in a way, it's kind of like a French defense with colors reversed. You could say that's what it is. But there's a few things different about French. You see, in the French is black, the queen has b3 available with colors reversed, or if you know English descriptive notation, queen knight 3. It's a bad notation, but it's sure useful for identifying squares. If I say your bishop 5 square, king bishop 5 square, you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to designate between f4 as when you're black and f5 when you're white. So that in itself seems to show that white's got the worst of this. Black is not only completely equalized, black's a little better off. This knight on d2 really has no future. It can become a defensive piece on f1, but e4 is covered, f3 is covered, c4 is covered, b3 and b1 are blocked. White might try to think about getting a knight to c5. Of course, black can stop that with b6. We don't know what's going to happen, but white develops. Now, I don't quite understand that, but I guess he just doesn't want white putting anything in b5. Now, white just develops. Now, that's more of a clearance move, but where does the knight go next? Maybe knight f8 would have been better. Then it goes to e6 and maybe g5. But who am I to say? Now, a3. That's definitely seems to be a wasted move. Okay. Why do I say? Well, number one, it takes away a possible diagonal for the bishop because the bishop's not going anywhere on the a1 h8 diagonal. It also weakens b3, which may or may not be important. And also, it fails to mobilize white's pieces. White's pieces are just sitting there, and white's saying basically, "I dare you to come and get me." Okay, so that's what black does. Now, here's a situation where black wants to trade, but why not trade where it helps you? Okay, let him take. For instance, if it's black's move, black take, we can redeploy this knight. The only from c3 back to e2. The only other option for this knight is to go to a4, but we can't go there because we get double pawns. See, the idea of getting to c5 is kind of gone. Now we don't necessarily want to play a weakness with h3 and force him to take, but maybe we could live with it. Let's take a quick look. h3, that puts the commitment to the bishop. Now white's able to redeploy his knight, but you see black has this open file. Well, okay, fine, you have an open file, big deal. White's okay. Now what I'm saying is white's still kind of stodgy, but he's solid here. Black doesn't really have an access point on g4. One thing black can try is knight h5 followed by an eventual f5 and f4, and then white can take remedies. Okay, let's get to the real position. I don't want to spend too much. There's always something to analyze in these games. Okay, so bishop g4. White declined the exchange. Now he pins that knight. Now this next move is one of those unprovoked errors. Why weaken your position? Okay. I guess White's trying to redeploy this bishop here, where it doesn't have a future at all. He would have been better trading it. Okay, queen d7, and now b4, and that further imprisons this bishop on b2. Look how bad that piece is. It may never get out. Okay, now bishop h3. Now here's a point where White should have kept that bishop. Just come back to f or e2. But I guess he played his moves. He didn't like this pin, so but that lets Black rid himself of that critter. Wait a minute, that's not what he played. He played it, but he played it later. Let me restore this. Hit the current button. Queen D. Maybe that's what he did play. Huh, I don't know why it wiped it out. But anyway, no big deal. Now, White's very weak on the light squares. And instead of having the pawn on h3 in the line I gave, he's got two gaping holes here. And if you've already seen the final position, that's how Black checkmates. So one drawback with b4 too is it gave this c4 square to Black. So I didn't mention that, but I can definitely see it now when I see the move. You know, that wouldn't have been possible if White had not played b4. And he did it to break the pin when the queen would have been perfectly fine going back to d1. You know, Black had nothing. Now White wants to keep this ugly bishop. Let him take. Let him take it. My God. Whoops, let me back up. This is the time to try to get some defense and try to get some squares. Okay, how about one idea is knight a4. If we're lucky, we can get knight c5 in. And if he takes on b2, we take back with the rook. Okay. Now on knight a4, Black I suppose could play b6. So then the knight's kind of hung out there. So maybe the better move here is knight e2. This way we're eyeballing f4. F4 is a decent square for the piece because it keeps an eye on d5. It watches g2 and h3. And like I say, we let him take this thing. We're glad to get rid of that bishop. This is a strong knight. Okay, let's get to current. Back it up. So bishop a1, bad move. You don't want this bishop is useless. Okay, so now comes in here, and this takes a potential defender of f2 away. Okay, the rook could defend f2 with the knight. Now the queen has to come back here, have to cover f2, right? Now the queen's even further out of play. At least maybe the queen can get to e2 if need be. Okay, rook e d8. He's overprotecting d5. And now at this point, Black discovers a sacrifice. Is it sound? My guess is it is. Okay. If White does nothing, Black just eats retreats his knight if he doesn't have anything better, and is a pawn ahead. But now White's under some serious pressure here. So let's see. Check. And then after knight f2, White is virtually defenseless against knight h3 mate. So it's a nice combination. Now what made it possible? Well, I'll show you what made it possible. Was bishop a1. Now this is a piece you want to jettison, and it all goes back to move 3, move 5, e3. I said, well, White's shutting his bishop in. You have it right there. This started White on the road to defeat. Now White may have lost had he played the normal e4, but he probably wouldn't have lost the game in as quickly as he did here. Okay, let's take a quick look at the match and see what other games I can do. I might stop this one. I just want to try to do a stock and see what I've missed. Also gives me a chance to see if any results have come in the last half hour that I've started this video. Let's scroll all the way down first. No, it's still the same, 13.5 to 5.5. Let's see, which board did I do? 145, I think. Wasn't it 145? It should. Yeah, 145. Okay. So let's move down a little bit more. Okay, we got what's going to happen. Unfortunately, that's the only one. There may be more. If he lost one, he's going to lose the other, unless he started playing. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, one more here. Let's see. Might start a new video with that one. 2 games still going. Get an idea how many more I need. I got both of those. I got Gram GM new. Oh, not too far. I guess we have one more. I'll go ahead and get it on this one, and I think I'll be caught up. Which one was it? Obviously not that one. It must be this one. Look at, oh my goodness. Just looking at the position right now with what I see. Ooh, how did 14 moves? My goodness. Yeah. Okay, bring up the analysis board. How did this one go wrong? Well, how do you lose a game in 14 moves in postal chess? You should never lose a game in 14 moves. Okay, so we got the Scotch Gambit, I guess. Roman Gingy has an interesting video series on this. He claims an advantage for white. I don't know. I looked at one of them. I don't play it from either side, so I'm not all that up on it. Now, black is not threatening to take the knight on e3. So, I'm sorry, on d4. Why? Because this bishop is pinning this. So, I don't know theory. I don't know if this is still theory, but white can castle right now. And what happens is white never castles. You do want to castle. And we'll come back to this. Let's run through this real quick. Let's see. At least it develops a piece, but what goes wrong where white doesn't get castled? Now, white doesn't have to take on c6. There's nothing making him do that capture because it's pinned. But he does. And now, I guess here starts his trouble. C5 wouldn't be possible if white had not taken that knight. So that appears to be the mistake. And now, look at that, bishop a6. So white's made black stop him from castling. If white doesn't take on the knight on c6, black can't play bishop a6. And now comes a horrible move, f3. I mean, you got to. I don't know why black doesn't check. I mean, the check seems. Let's just look at the finish, and we'll come back and discuss a little bit. Ouch. You know, I mean, this is just terrible. White resigned here. There goes the queen. Yeah, that's good enough reason to resign. You know, my goodness. Okay, what about queen h4 check? I mean, that's the first move I'm going to look at. Okay, if you move the king, no, you can't move the king. The king has no move. You have to play here. Funny, huh? You take here. Now, what does white do? Well, if you take the rook or take the knight, you lose the rook. You know, it looks like this is just as good, unless let's get to the current position. Let's see if white had any other defense. Here he just allowed queen takes g2. We've got to cover that. Queen can't come up. what if we take the knight? Or is that fatal? Oh wait, we have a new threat. Queen Queen E3 check is winning the queen. Oh my god. So like I was thinking rook G1, but whoops. This gets a mate in 2, doesn't it? Okay, so clearly, White had his chance to castle and he didn't. Let's consider the 2 moves he could have castled. Okay, well first, don't take on C6, take here. Now, if black forces, well, it doesn't really force white to take, but if he invites him to take, even the double pawn comes, a6 is not available for the bishop to come to. So let's do something smart. Let's castle for black. Now the question is, does white want to preserve both bishops? Well, if he does, he needs to retreat the bishop. But then, maybe. But it all comes back to this move. Just castle, and you're fine. It's a game of chess. You've got to get castled, and here you castle. Now that if bishop takes, it does force you to. Well, no, you don't have to take the knight. You can take with the queen. Now you have to make a decision where to put the queen or to take the knight. But it's basically an even game. White shouldn't have anything to fear here. So obviously, it just comes from the result comes from not taking your time and analyzing. Anyway, I'm going to close this one out. I think I got them all caught up, but I'm not 100% certain. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, and we'll look forward to making another one soon. Take care. Bye now.